Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Asheville podcast. In each episode, we'll delve into the wisdom of spiritual teachings, of the science of mind and universal metaphysical principles inspired by Ernest Holmes and other renowned spiritual teachers. Join us as we explore empowering stories, embrace the power of love and higher consciousness, and walk the path to a more awakened life through the lens of New Thought spirituality. Enjoy.
Friday night, when you installed me as your senior minister officially, I said, we're going to be shaking it up from here. So I warned you. We're going to do some things a little differently. And I just want to say, as a white person, I have considered myself fairly enlightened. And I have been discovering in the last handful of years that I have a lot to learn. And but I'm open to doing that. I'm open to listening and understanding and learning what it is to not be me. And what I've discovered is that the more I learn about other people who are different from me, I learn more about myself, because what is most personal is also most universal. No matter the color of your skin or your creed or your ethnicity or whatever your diversity might be, and trust me, every single one of you is diverse, that when we listen and understand and connect with one another, we all make progress, because until we're all free, no one is free. So, have we made progress? Yes. Is it enough? No. And so we keep marching on.
Yes.
So I'm going to let Eddie share whatever's on his heart about your experience in Black America and white America and in America or wherever in life.
Yes, well, thank you. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, the home of Motown. So when I was growing up in Detroit, where I lived, a place called Black Bottom. This was not Grosse Pointe. This was like, the ghetto. I say that respectfully and with love, That's where I grew up, and everything was black where I grew up. So I didn't really have a sense of what it was like to be separation, because everything was black. Our mayor was black, my teachers were black, so it was black, 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 all around. And then my mother put me in a private school, Our Lady of Sorrows. So I was a Baptist going to a Catholic school. and that is when I encountered more white people, And in Detroit, there was a lot of Polish people, a lot of Italians, Jews, So it was a very diverse group. But as a child, it was very interesting because the white people were the minority in Detroit, where I grew up. Mm-hmm. So we had an opportunity to interact in that energy, which I later learned what that energy was like when I actually got out from Detroit and realized that things were not that way. I was not the majority. So my experience might be a little bit different, because the racism that I experienced was more or less when I was an adult. But as a child, I didn't. My father, on the other hand, he was born and raised in Athens, Georgia. Mm-hmm. And his father endured extreme racism. And I was told stories where, my mother's father is white. She felt that she should have every privilege that a white person had. So when it said colored only, water fountains, because when I was a child, when I went to Athens, Georgia, we had certain water fountains that we can drink from, certain restrooms that we had to use. We couldn't use the white restrooms, It wasn't a big deal. I didn't take it personally. That's just what it was. So I didn't know that we weren't supposed to be second-class citizens. I thought that that's what we were supposed to be. It's like second class, right? But that was what I was indoctrinated into once I got out as an adult. And and we've made progress, but what I can say to you today is that coming into New Thought, coming into this art thing here that we have, I saw a glimpse of what the world could be like. And I've been doing this with you guys. I had a career as a session bass player for many years. I was very successful as a bass player. And I had a spiritual awakening after a bout with alcoholism and drug abuse. I had a spiritual awakening. And my sponsor was a member of Agape. So God started working on me as soon as I came into this. And then I met people like Suzi. I kept following her everywhere she went. She moved to one city, I'd moved there. She moved to another city, I moved there. You know, it's just the way it went. But what I can say to you is that some of my closest friends are white, gay, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Italian, on and on. Because what I learned is life is about people and what you create with them. And people, like I don't think that I like the LGBTQ community. I don't think that they should be treated. I don't think that they should be treated any different from anyone else. I don't think they have special rights. I think they should have the rights that everyone has.
Amen. Yeah.
You know, so that's what manifested from my experience in this culture is that, and that's what brought me here, and to meet you and to be sitting here today.
You know, when you mentioned the thing about the white and colored restrooms, I remember I was probably 7 or 8 maybe, and we took a trip through the South, the deep South, and not only were the restrooms marked colored and white, the water fountains were.
Exactly.
But both water fountains were white, so I didn't understand. I said, this is not colored. You know, so, you know, as kids, none of this stuff makes any sense.
Yeah.
You know, none of the prejudice makes any sense. We learn it later. Some learned it more than others. Yeah. Some of us learned just sort of unconscious, you know, racism. We just didn't even know we were, you know, being disrespectful in any way. And so we're all sort of in this learning laboratory together of how to come back together as one human family. Yeah. And as you say, you know, it's about people to people to people to people. You know, we're all human beings. And it's finding, I mean, that's the common ground right there. Yes. And it's the truth. So the things that have gone on, and I guess I would say right now, again, I said, you know, have we made progress? Yes. Is it enough? No. And my concern in the last few years is that we seem to be taking some giant leaps backwards in some areas of this country, and that concerns me deeply. I lived in an area where it was not a good place to be, because it was very oppressive for a lot of people. And then it kind of caught on, and we need to shift back to moving forward, not backward. Yes. I'm not a big fan of backward. So is there anything else you want to say, or shall we open up to some comments or questions?
Well, I think that once we really listen to words, because words matter, I think that most people who are called racist aren't really racist. I think they're prejudiced. And there's a big difference between prejudice and racism. And I believe that racism is only executed by people in power that have a way to suppress another race. I think that's racism. I think prejudice is something that we all have, because black people have just as much prejudice as white people have. So, and once we get clear about that, you know, I think we could have more of a mutual dialogue and meet on a common ground. Because if I say that you're a racist, you know, that person may not be a racist. They may have prejudice just as like you do. Yeah. You know, so I think being clear in the language would really help us to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction. Mm-hmm. You know, I hadn't really thought about that, but you're right. It's when it becomes systematized and institutionalized that it really is racism.
Yeah, only a person with power can institute racism.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that, unfortunately, is one of the things I'm seeing that is concerning me in this country, because I think it is a giant leap backwards, and I think it doesn't only take the oppressed people backward, it takes all of us backward. And it's just really not okay. And to say nothing else, it is diametrically opposed to what we teach. It's opposed to what our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, was talking about all along, that we are all included, that we are all one, that we are all interconnected. We can't get away from each other, you know? Yes. I mean, we're here. We're in this thing together, and boy, I say make the most of it, you know?
You know what I say? I say that you are the place where God shows up. I am the place where God shows up. And
you're the place where God shows up.
And everyone here
Exactly.
is the place where God shows up.
And so, you know, I guess let God out.
That's right.
You know, let it out.
Yeah.
So we're going to open it up. If you've got a comment or a question, please come up to the mic. And the way you work with mics is you pretend that it's an ice cream cone you're about to lick, and that will work very well.
Hello.
Sam?
I was watching a snippet from a basketball game. And when one team won, I noticed there were white and black players. And they were hugging one another. And it struck me how they all were so equal and respected and loved each other on that team. You both used the term common ground. And what I've felt for a very long time is that black people and white people share very little common ground in this country. We're mysteries to each other in many ways. And as much as I'd like to think that I can, by virtue of changing my attitude about things, make a difference, I think there's more of a practical need to pull people together. My wife and I attended Agape for many years, and there were a lot of black people at Agape, maybe more black than white.
Yes.
But I felt completely at home there. It was common ground where we all shared a certain view of life and acceptance and what you might call God. And by virtue of that, we were equals and accepted each other. I don't know how to recreate that on a national scale, but to me, it seems like that's the trick, is to find a way to bring people together so that they can get to know one another and realize how much alike we all are.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's great. Thank you, Sam. You know, one of the things that you said that I think is so important is that some actual practical action needs to take place. And interestingly, as I shared a little bit on Friday evening, our international, actually, spiritual movement, Centers for Spiritual Living, is taking this on and focusing on how do we engage in sacred spiritual activism. You know, activism sometimes gets a bad rap, but if it's done right, it's potent and powerful. And what we're talking about is that we do the inner work first. We do the work in consciousness, but we don't stop there. What is inner must emerge in the outer actions that we take that move us all forward. So we do, if there's not common ground, we need to find it or create it and step on it and then begin to engage and take actions that move it then outward from that common ground. And so as a spiritual movement, Centers for Spiritual Living is engaging in that, and we will be taking part in that. Do I know all the answers? I sure don't. But we have a lot of creativity and wisdom in this room, and this is a start. And we'll start here, and we will together discover what is ours to be and to do. So you're right. It doesn't stop at oh, I'm feeling pretty good. It's got to be, but this one's not. So let's do what we can to embrace and engage. Sheila.
Good morning. You mentioned inner work, and I'm grateful that you did, because it made me get out of my chair and say something. Having come from Charleston for the conference and attended all the celebration, I'm saddened to know that I've got some inner work to do. I grew up in a suburb of Chicago. My father had an 8th grade education and worked in the steel mills. Very, very, very prejudiced. Embedded in me. And I know that intellectually. But also intellectually, I'm open-minded. But this past week, my heart was moved. So I want to claim to everybody, I want your help. Because I have some inner work to do. I've got some family baggage, and I can't wait to call my sister, who now lives in Georgia, and share some of that common ground with her. So I just invite comment, feedback, and I'm just open at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. And you know what? You just took a huge step right there.
Yes.
In doing the inner work by asking outwardly, help me to do this work. You just took a major leap right there. So thank you for that. That's huge.
I think something that would also help, from my perspective, is a lot of times, the media can portray some things that aren't really reality. And
a little bit.
Putting that lightly, but my point is this: is that leave space. Leave room for people to grow. As a black person, it's easy to walk around with a chip on your shoulder waiting for someone to be racist or prejudiced. Never assume that someone is racist or prejudiced. Never assume that. Somebody can be having a bad day, and it's not about your blackness. It's about them having a bad day. And just briefly, I was traveling, and I was somewhere in Texas, I believe, and there was a shopping cart that was headed towards this guy's big truck, the big truck that's all up in the air, and he's had the Confederate flags, and Trump will save us all, things, and I started to not stop this cart. And it was going to dent his car. This was a pretty truck, too. and this car, and I'm saying, this guy's probably a racist. Why should I do this? But what I do for anybody is I went and ran and stopped the cart, It's just so happened the guy saw me, Ooh. And he turned around and said, "Thank you, sir." Now, that was not what I was expecting, but all I'm saying is that, for blacks and white, never assume that someone is racist or prejudiced. Leave that window for them to prove it to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you know what, Sheila, I just want to say that we're all learning. We all have inner work to do.
Yes.
And I've noticed it goes better when we do it together, It's kind of like an exercise program, and we are exercising a spiritual muscle. And it seems to go better when we do it together. So we'll do more of that, because we all have inner work to do. I don't care, again, what diversity you are, we all have inner work to do. And that's where it starts. And that's when it starts to show up outside, where your instinct became, forget that, I'm going to stop the cart.
Exactly.
Yeah. And he said, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, good morning. I wanted to share that, there's lots of different ways to take in the learning and kind of grow. And so if anyone is into podcasts, there's an excellent podcast that I've been listening to called 1619. And maybe some people are already aware of it, but it's just really beautifully done and very well done by Nicole Hannah-Jones. And there's just like audio footage that's kind of like incredible, and some shocking, and stories that are told by people that she brings in that are just, I don't know, it's kind of like, for me anyway, some of it was hard to listen to, some of it was wonderful to listen to. It talked about the economy and the music that that American music is just, the base of it is Black. And it's just really, because like in the 1800s, we were borrowing our entertainment from Europe, and it was, Italian operas and, English plays, but, and I had no idea that the banjo was African, so it's just a really neat podcast that I just want to share with people,
Thank you.
Yeah.
1619, guys. Yeah, so much of our music and arts have come from the Black population. I mean, it's jazz. Hello. I recently, when I was in Sarasota, went to the West Coast Black acting troupe. I can't remember the exact name, but these are some exceptional actors and singers and dancers, and they did a whole thing on Black Broadway that I knew nothing about. There was a whole Black Broadway going on while White Broadway, the Great White Way, was going on.
Yep.
There was the Great Black Way, and let me tell you what, it was powerful. That was a powerful thing that has influenced now Broadway. So, Blair, come.
So I'm just going to piggyback on Lisa's comment. I think a lot of it is the education.
Yep.
There's so much that has been erased because the people who write the history are the people that oppress. And so we really need to get creative in finding the information. I have friends that I went to school with, and I grew up in Gastonia outside of Charlotte. But I didn't grow up in the rich white part of Gastonia. I was in the inner city. And the elementary school that I went to, I was actually the minority in that school, and it really shaped my vision of this country, because I went to the richest white church and the poorest Black school. And so having that unbalance in my life really shaped how I see the world. And so being able to find the information that is the accurate truth, redlining is a big thing. And I mean, just fundamentally oppressing people and then saying, but why are you upset? Just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, work harder, do better. So
Yeah,
I think
you're absolutely right. We must educate ourselves, and we're going to be doing some things to help us to do that together. We're going to take a couple of more, and then we're going to, if you'll make it brief, we're going to do a couple of more, and then we're going to trust me, this is going to go on for
all right.
a while
I
in the
used
future.
to do energy healing, and when I did, sometimes I would see people's faces change in front of me. And I remember sitting there with a white man, and all of a sudden I saw a Black man, just kind of come over his face. So we live many lives, not necessarily white, not necessarily Black, not necessarily Asian, but he confirmed with me that he had had a past life as a slave at a plantation in the South. So we are all one. Our souls go through many incarnations, and we may look different, but that doesn't mean we're all the same. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I wanted to speak on sharing our communities with each other, and that piggybacks on education, and we share our music, we share our food, and I have recently had an experience where I was hired to play the opening of a funeral home in Spartanburg. And I got there, and I was the only white person in about 200 people. And it was a different experience for me, not being the only white person, but this was a celebration of a black business in a black community, of the Church of Life and Death. People were dressed to the nines. Everybody was singing. Everybody was dancing. Everybody was hugging. I was so welcome, and it was, as much as I've been a huge part of the jazz world in New York and around the world, and gospel music, I can't really say that I have ever experienced anything like that in my community. In my neighborhood now, which is mixed racially, if a funeral home opens, there is not a party like this going on. It is not going down like that. There was food. There was people flown in that were like well-known gospel legends. It was amazing, and I thought there is so much that I thought I knew about the black community through the music that I don't know about people's everyday life.
Right.
And it's at that level that I would love to see outreach between our communities.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We did that in Sarasota, where we sort of did some exchanges and did some things together. And you're right, it's a whole different experience when you let those folks show you how they do things, which is quite different from the way some of us white folks have been imitating how they do things.
Well, that is the black culture. I mean, because when I was growing up, it was sort of like when we party.
Yeah.
And I mean, we party hard, and whoever is around, I mean, whether you're white or what, and see a lot of things. We had a lot of Cubans, and we had Africans, and we had all sorts of black people who actually weren't Americans, you know.
Yeah.
And but anytime there's a white person that comes in, black people are really kind and warm and hospitable. And what you would see on the media, you see the kids with the pants hanging down, below their drawers and all. That's not the typical black person. That's what they like to show you on the media to separate us. But in reality, for me traveling across this country, and I traveled for 5 years across this country. Trust me, I promise you, there are way more similarities between us than differences. I can guarantee you that.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll take one more.
Thank you. This is more of a comment, I guess, than a question, but I'd love to get feedback from it. So when you were singing that song, I thankfully learned that song when I was in my teens, and I loved that song. And then I came into New Thought, and I learned about affirmations. And I think that song is a fabulous affirmation until it gets to the last word. And what I'd love to have with that song is that we shall overcome today.
Yeah.
Because I think it's, that's what we teach. That's what I've learned is, we're doing things today, not someday out there. Let's do it today. So that's the way I'm going to do that song when I do that song next.
Go for it. Go for it. That's great. I want to thank all of you who came up and asked a question or shared or whatever. And you just know that there will be more opportunities. I mean, there are all kinds of things we can do to educate ourselves and each other. We can do some book studies. We can do some workshops. Languaging is a huge part of this, because words matter. And we all use words and then say, wow, that probably wasn't a good word. And so, we can all learn to be more conscious. And that's really what a lot of it is about. It's about being conscious and present to the truth that stands before us
now
and within us. And a lot of times we're unconscious and on autopilot, and we're not available to that truth. And so we're going to do the inner work, and we're going to do the outer work, and we're all going to be better for it, all of us. And we will help to move the world to a better place. We will create a world that works for all. We're doing it today and someday and every day. So I want to close with one more reading, and Eddie just happens to have a song that goes with this too. This is The Moments of My High Resolve from The Inward Journey by Howard Thurman, who he's an icon in not just the black community, but the white community. He was a huge influence in the civil rights movement, a huge influence on Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, a huge influence on our own beloved Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith. And I was lucky enough to find out that he was raised in Florida, not far from where I was living in Sarasota, and we got to have a weekend retreat that was all about Howard Thurman. The man was amazing. He's an American mystic, and I shared this with you. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. Despite the dullness and barrenness of the days that pass, if I search with due diligence, I can always find a deposit left by some former radiance. But I had forgotten. At the time, it was full-orbed, glorious, and resplendent. I was sure that I would never forget. In the moment of its fullness, I was sure that it would illumine my path for the rest of my journey. I had forgotten how easy it is to forget. There was no intent to betray what seemed so sure at the time. My response was whole, clean, authentic, but little by little there crept into my life the dust and grit of the journey, details, lower-level demands, all kinds of cross-currents, nothing momentous, nothing overwhelming, nothing flagrant, just wear and tear. If there had been some direct challenge, a clear-cut issue, I would have fought it to the end and beyond. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all-pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve.
We hope you enjoyed this enlightening voyage with the Center for Spiritual Living Asheville podcast series, filled with metaphysical talks inspired by the science of mind teachings of Ernest Holmes and other renowned spiritual teachers. If today's exploration resonated with you and you'd like to support the continuation of this insightful journey, please consider making a donation. Your generosity helps us to continue to share these transformative teachings. To contribute, check the episode's description for a link to our donation page. Every contribution, no matter the size, makes a meaningful impact. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Connect with us on social media, share your thoughts, and join our community at our live events whenever you're able. May your mind be expanded, your heart opened, and your journey be filled with the profound wisdom of these spiritual teachings.